Hello, my fellow tarnished. I took a break from playing Elden Ring to paint the Elden Ring on canvas. I already sketched this out digitally. Although it's a trace of the cover art, I drew it in an angular geometric style, printed it on A4 paper with a crappy printer. The canvas is also A4 dimensions, so it fits nicely. I transferred the sketch by covering the back with graphite from my 6B pencil, then I traced over the sketch with my mechanical pencil. This process imprints the graphite onto the canvas, giving me this clean sketch. The paints I'll be using are Holbein Acryla Gouache. I bought this set 3 years ago. That's enough time for me to be less precious with it. I also have a set of these empty cosmetic cups so I can refrigerate any extra paint for another session. Another cosmetic accessory I didn't know I needed is this makeup brush cleaner. I couldn't find one of those paint pucks, so this was the next available choice. In my new painting sketchbook, I already tested the colors, but the color mixing still challenges me. It's hard to imagine a target color traditionally, so back on my computer, I roughly colored the sketch with fills and airbrush gradients. When desaturated, the Great Rune is the brightest element, as it should be. Another reference is this swatch sheet for my paint. It reminds me what their actual hues are and how opaque they can be. I'll be using this Viridian as the base color for the sky, with a dash of purple and black for a bit of mystery. This won't be a vanilla Viridian, it'll be an edgelord Viridian. The paint was kinda watery. I wonder if that has anything to do with staying on the shelf for 3 years. Acryla gouache was one of those art trends that totally made a sucker out of me. Don't get me wrong, their opaqueness and the way they handle give attractive results. But once I actually got a set for myself, I had no clue how to fit it with my style. Earlier this year though, I was on a painting streak with plain gouache on my mixed media sketchbook. It was about time to make works for display. I looked into it and acrylic gouache can be applied on canvas material. This one was already pre-primed, which would prevent the cloth from soaking the paint. The acrylic component should, in theory, allow it to cling onto the canvas. I'm hoping that's the case. I'm still, after all, maidenless when it comes to this type of paint. I wasn't even sure if going from dark to light was a good idea. All I knew going into this was that with my digital color reference, I'm practically painting by numbers. No fancy blending techniques planned. Like I said, color mixing is still a challenge for me to get the values right. If you've watched my digital art tutorials, I tend to toggle a desaturation layer to check for contrast between the subject and background elements. Then I can easily slide the hue and saturation to correct any muddiness. For traditional painting, squinting your eyes to defocus is the quickest way to check the values, but it still discourages me if I have to massage the mistakes. There are acrylic painters on YouTube who are so experienced in color mixing that they seem to know which tubes to mix for the color in their head. Pretty wild. I do believe that it's fine to use tools you're comfortable with. Coloring digitally first eliminates the guesswork in the process while saving me paint and time. I even went back to my computer to color pick certain shades. The colors placed on the wheel gives me more information on where the hue leans towards. Helps me determine if the paint is warm, cold, or neutral. Watching this footage again, I realized I should have applied an underpaint of lime green before I transferred the sketch. An underpaint would have helped unify the hues. I thought I wouldn't need that because I have target colors already. But soon I found out another reason for underpainting is because sometimes when the paint dries up, there are still little specks of white from the canvas. Might be from microbubbles popping. I covered those with excess paint at least. For the next shade of the sky, I added some zinc white acrylic on that initial cup of edgelord Viridian. It's not the white from the big tube on the box, that's a titanium white. Zinc white is for more subtle adjustments toward lighter values. The camera makes it look dull, so I'm gonna guess that as a different brand, the zinc white acrylic has a matte finish under my ring light, but the shade is more saturated seeing it in person. As the green goes lower, the light from the golden rings would be affecting the clouds more. My experience with watercolors taught me that I need a lot of yellow to warm shades up, while gouache painting taught me how much white I'll also need for pastels and desaturation. Thus, I have big tubes of yellow and white acrylics as fillers for mixing, while I stay conservative with the good stuff. The acrylics are both Daiso Rowney brands. Unfortunately, the yellow acrylic is from the student grade line, so it wasn't very pigmented. A long squeeze of yellow acrylic didn't change the green much, but at least I got excess paint, I guess. My initial plan was to go from darker to lighter colors, so I painted those foreground elements next. It wasn't a good idea because these are clusters of small details which I'll have to avoid or correct once I come in with more background colors. The golden order of painting this particular piece should have been from largest details to smallest. Those details down there are some of the legacy dungeons in the lands between. Their placement is still faithful to the cover art, but I knew I can't achieve realistic fog and cloud effects, so I looked to Samurai Jack for style inspiration. Samurai Jack is an appropriate twist on this because that show was set amongst ruins and apocalyptic landscapes, but there were still pockets of hope in between. From where I am in the game, the lore heavily hints at a sinister undertone to the pursuit of the Elden Ring. There's always a caveat to becoming a hero in From Software games, but damn does this fool's errand feel so grand. I wasn't really hyped during the marketing rounds, but since my husband is a veteran Dark Souls player, we bought his copy on day one. On the day after, I gave it a try and didn't let him play until late in the evening when he successfully convinced me to buy my own copy. My 2022 plans for YouTube content took a hit ever since. So yeah, for the past few months I've been trotting around as an edge lady with the latest line of flowing cape fashion. I thought I wouldn't enjoy cooperating with random players as well. The invasion mechanic sounds intimidating, but once I dipped my toes by turning on the golden effigy, the experience was thrilling. Even if I die during co-op, I found it sweet that the host player would summon me again. It also calms my social anxiety when I can't chat with the host, but I wish Steam still logged who I played with. If you played with one named Forkington around this time, that's me. I covered that orange fog with some cool grayish blue. That orange was an experiment to add some more warmth, but it was too much. I didn't fully hide it though. The ground element should imply some perspective. For this style, perspective could be depicted with atmospheric perspective. The locations at the back would have warmer lighting, then the fog goes cooler for the foreground, which is farther from the rune. I added some green as a transition color. The last section to paint is the Elden Ring itself. The base yellow is my Daiso Rowney with a bit of red from the Holbein set. Despite the paint ratio favoring yellow, the red tended to overpower the cheaper acrylic. There's more filler to this yellow than pigment. It may look like a big glob of paint, but I needed multiple layers to reach a good opaqueness. If you also noticed my brush strokes, I kept doing micro strokes to stay within the sketch. That was bad for my arm. My shoulder blade was swelling after this. That's another rookie habit that I'll need to unlearn. The rune shines the brightest on the line intersections. The effect starts off subtle, but the camera picks it up soon. I can hear the main theme play in my head as I see this painting come to an end. I tried humming it for this voice recording, but I'll spare your ears. My husband and I have a rule: if at any moment we're humming a song together, we might as well play that song on speakers already. The painting part is done. One last step. To protect my claim to the Great Rune, I must seal it. With Mod Podge, I scoop the gloop onto a tray where I can dip my sponge brush. This brush lets me cover a wide area evenly. and it's pretty satisfying to see the Podge cover the art. This is a water-based sealant. I'm not sure how long it'll last. It looks and smells like glue, so it's safe to apply indoors with basic ventilation. I'd have to give this a few months to prove itself before I can recommend it strongly. Just in case, I applied 3 coats of the stuff on this. Instead of putting my foolish ambitions to rest, I put them to the test.
I'll let that pass because it's being adorable.
Thanks for watching. Now if you'll excuse me, I still have a game to finish. Please like, comment, subscribe, and kneel to your Elden Lord. Bye bye.